In April 2025, Tay-K, whose real name is Tamor McIntyre, found himself back in court for a second murder trial that would ultimately seal his fate forever. But to understand how we got here, we need to rewind and trace the journey of this troubled teen who went from SoundCloud sensation to convicted killer facing life behind bars. The rise, the fall, the second murder trial. Tamor McIntyre, better known as Tay-K or Tay-K47, burst onto the scene with his 2017 track The Race, which he dropped while literally on the run from the feds. The song blew up. We're talking over 200 million views on YouTube, with Tay-K flexing in front of his own wanted poster and spitting bars about ducking the law. The track peaked at number 44 on Billboard and went platinum, with everyone from 21 Savage to Tyga jumping on remixes. But the story behind that track is where things get mad crazy. See, back in July 2016, when Tay-K was only 16, he and 6 others set up a home invasion in Mansfield, Texas. They were trying to rob a dude named Zachary Belotti of drugs and money, but the whole thing went left real quick.
And stashes remained unrobbed. A confrontation took place between Letharian Merritt and Sean Robinson and Zachary Belotti and Ethan Walker. And apparently Sean Robinson, who was holding up Zachary Belotti at gunpoint, put 2 hands on the gun and fired after being told there was no money.
During this home invasion, 21-year-old Ethan Walker, who was just chilling playing video games with his girlfriend, got shot and killed. The crazy part, Tay-K himself wasn't even the shooter. It was a dude named Letharian Merritt who pulled the trigger, but under Texas law, if you're involved in a felony where somebody dies, you can catch a murder charge regardless. After getting caught, Tay-K was put on house arrest while awaiting trial. But this man wasn't trying to sit around and wait for the system to do its thing. After 8 months of house arrest, he decided to cut off his ankle monitor and go on the run. He even tweeted about it, basically saying, "Catch me if you can," to the police.
Tay-K has been in prison for the last 6 years out of a 55-year sentence given to him by a jury. Prior to this, he was on house arrest for 8 months when suddenly he sent out a tweet stating he had enough. He and his best friend cut off their ankle monitors and said they were going on the run, and if police wanted them, they were gonna have to come find them.
While on the run, Tay-K wasn't just laying low. According to the documents, he was moving wild, getting spotted at malls and restaurants, not even worried about being recognized. But what really makes this story next level is that while he was a fugitive, he allegedly caught another body. In April 2017, while in San Antonio, Tay-K and his homie pimps allegedly tried to rob a photographer named Mark Anthony Saldivar of his camera equipment. When the robbery went sideways and Saldivar tried to escape, Tay-K allegedly shot him in a Chick-fil-A parking lot, killing him on the spot.
But when this went down, things didn't go according to plan. Again. Mark began yelling as loud as he could for help and he ran toward the street. They sped up after him trying to run him over, but he landed on the hood and held on as they drove off. They had to pull into a Chick-fil-A parking lot nearby to get him off. When the car stopped, Mark got up, stomped on the windshield as hard as he could, breaking it. This agitated Tay-K and he allegedly leaned out the window and shot him, flinging his body onto the ground and leaving him there to die.
After 3 months on the run, U.S. Marshals finally caught up to Tay-K in New Jersey on June 30th, 2017. And in a move that showed just how calculated this young dude was, the same day he got arrested, he dropped the music video for The Race, which had been filmed while he was on the run, and it immediately went viral. In July 2019, Tay-K finally faced the consequences for the first murder case. Despite not being the shooter, he was sentenced to 55 years in prison, plus additional time for aggravated robbery charges. The prosecution used The Race against him in court, arguing that he was glorifying his crimes and showing no remorse. But that first sentence wasn't the end of Tay-K's legal troubles. He still had to face charges for the alleged murder of Mark Saldivar in San Antonio. And that brings us to 2025, where Tay-K, now 24 years old, has spent nearly a third of his life behind bars. After numerous delays, with the trial originally scheduled for February 2025 but pushed back due to pending ballistics evidence, Tay-K's second murder trial finally began on April 1st, 2025 in Bexar County. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Facing a capital murder charge, he was looking at the possibility of life without parole. What's wild is that in February 2024, Tay-K actually rejected a plea deal for this case, choosing instead to take his chances at trial. This decision would prove to be a major gamble given what was about to go down in that courtroom. On the first day of the trial, 4 witnesses testified, laying out the prosecution's case against Tay-K. The evidence included surveillance footage from near the Chick-fil-A where the murder took place, eyewitness testimonies, and forensic evidence linking Tay-K to the scene. During the trial, observers noticed that Tay-K appeared with a neck injury, sparking speculation about his treatment in prison. Some fans expressed concern on social media, wondering if he was being targeted behind bars because of his notoriety. As the trial progressed over the first few days of April 2025, the word on Twitter was bleak for Tay-K's prospects. Fans were already expressing disappointment and resignation, with one user tweeting, "Tay-K Tay-K already serving a 55-year sentence, and now they're trying him for the second murder. They're trying to make a statement out of this young man. He's definitely not coming home. Another fan tweeted, Tay-K might get the death sentence if it's on the table because that Judge Boyd is mean and strict. However, because Tay-K was a minor at the time of the alleged crime, the death penalty wasn't an option, but life without parole definitely was. Many in the hip-hop community questioned why they were even going through with this second trial when Tay-K was already serving 55 years. One Twitter user pointed out, starting a trial 8 years later is so evil, man. This is not about justice for Mark's family. Tay-K already never getting out. This shit is a waste of court time and tax dollars FR. But the justice system had other ideas, and as the trial wrapped up after just a few days, the verdict came in. And fam, it wasn't good news for Tay-K. The jury found him guilty of capital murder in the death of Mark Saldivar, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Just like that, whatever slim chance Tay-K had of one day walking free was gone. The 55-year sentence from his first case at least offered the possibility of parole after 27.5 years. But this new sentence meant exactly what it said. Goodbye forever. The controversies and the context. Now that we've covered what went down with Tay-K's second murder trial, we need to talk about the controversies surrounding his case and what led this young man down such a destructive path. Because this isn't just about one rapper catching a life sentence, it's about a system that many believe failed a troubled kid from jump. Let's rewind and look at Tay-K's background, because context matters. Tamor McIntyre was born on June 16, 2000 in Long Beach, California, deep in Crip territory. And from day one, his life was anything but easy.
Both of his parents were gang members, and even though his dad was always in and out of prison, his mom was still active with the Baby Insane Crips while raising the two kids, him and his sister Kayla. But things really took a turn for the worse when his dad was doing a 7-year run in prison for a deal gone bad in 2002. Without a father figure around, it was hard for him to find guidance. Eventually, their mom was unable to raise them, and they soon found themselves in the foster care system, bouncing around from different families who ultimately didn't want them.
That's right. Tay-K and his sister spent a significant part of their childhood in the foster care system, never really having a stable home. His sister Kayla even said in an interview, damn near all our life, we never stayed with our parents. We kind of stayed in different foster homes, bouncing around. After his dad got out of prison in 2009, Tay-K and his family moved to Texas, but things didn't get better. According to the documents, his dad was abusive, and Tay-K would do anything to avoid going home. He started hanging in the streets at a young age, looking for the acceptance and protection he wasn't getting at home. By 2014, when he was just a freshman in high school, Tay-K was already deep in the rap game, forming a group called the Daytona Boys with his friends Eric Santana Sage Johnson and Jalen Pimps Bell. They were uploading tracks to SoundCloud, booking local shows, and starting to make a name for themselves in the Arlington area. But the streets had a strong pull on Tay-K, and by 15, he was already involved in serious crime. The Daytona Boys weren't just rapping about street life, they were living it, reportedly robbing, stealing, and toting guns, according to the documents. The first major incident that put Tay-K adjacent to violence happened on New Year's Day, 2016, when Santana Sage fired shots into a car after an altercation, killing 21-year-old college student Sarah Mushlanger. Tay-K was in the car, but being a minor, faced no charges. His name wasn't even mentioned in court. Santana Sage, however, received 44 years for the murder. Walking away from something that serious without consequences might have given Tay-K a sense of invincibility. Just 6 months later, he was involved in the home invasion that would change his life forever. After that incident and his subsequent flight, Tay-K was eventually sentenced to 55 years for the murder of Ethan Walker, despite not being the shooter. This is where one of the biggest controversies comes in. Many argue that Tay-K's sentence was disproportionately harsh, especially when compared to his co-defendants. The girl who actually planned the robbery that led to Walker's death received only 10 years of probation, while Tay-K got 55 years.
Yeah, everybody knows some rappers be lying about the stuff they do in songs. Some rappers don't though. Meet Tay-K, a 16-year-old kid who took the U.S. Marshals on an insane cross-country chase. But here's where it starts to get wickeder. You remember little white girl from earlier? Tay-K's lawyer brings up the fact that she got 20 years, which was changed to 10 months probation. His lawyer said, what's the difference between the two of them? In this case, you have two 16-year-olds that didn't anybody. In fact, she planned the whole thing. So technically, he shouldn't get more time, right? The judge said, that doesn't sound fair, but technically, this is Texas, 55 years.
Even Charleston White, a controversial social media personality who's usually tough on crime, believed Tay-K's sentence was unjust. Yeah, I reached out. Yeah, I talked to his sister. Yeah, I want to help him, homie. You see a big change in him. He was unfairly sentenced to 55 years. The plea they offered the first time was still unjust. The first charge, homie, he got more than a shooter. He wasn't even a shooter. Tay-K's uncle uncle also spoke about this disparity in an interview, pointing out how the actual shooter received a much lighter sentence.
He was just there. He was a minor there. You know, he was influence heavy. You know, we all know that he didn't pull that trigger. So I think the guy who did got 20 years, and then my nephew got 55 because I think it was the mockery of the judicial system.
Right.
You know, the song he made, and I remember what the judge told him when I was there when he first got here. So it's like I knew why that judge, you know, he felt that way because, you know, Texas is hard on their criminals, especially African Americans. So I believe if that stuff happened in California, he would have been out already. But in Texas, it's different.
The case has sparked intense debate about racial disparities in the justice system, with many arguing that Tay-K's race played a significant role in his harsh sentence. In fact, Tay-K himself has made this argument, suggesting that if he were white, he wouldn't have received such a severe punishment. Another controversial aspect of Tay-K's case is that he was tried as an adult despite being only 16 at the time of the crime. This touches on the broader issue of juvenile justice in America and raises questions about whether young offenders should be held to the same standards as adults, especially when their brains are still developing. The judge in Tay-K's first trial was particularly upset about the support Tay-K was receiving online, with the Free Tay-K movement gaining traction after the release of The Race. According to the documents, the judge stated, "It's my understanding that people throughout this country have Free Tay-K signs up, and this court has a problem with that." Using Tay-K's music against him in court also raised eyebrows. While The Race undeniably chronicled his flight from justice, some argued that using artistic expression as evidence blurs the line between art and reality. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of this whole saga is the question of responsibility. Was Tay-K a victim of circumstance, a kid from a broken home who got caught up in a system that failed him, or was he a calculated criminal who showed no remorse for his actions? Charleston White suggests it's more complex than either or.
Yeah, I reached out, I talked to his sister. Yeah, I want to help him, homie. You can see a big change in him. He was unfairly sentenced to 55 years. The plea they offered him the first time was still unjust. The first charge, homie, he got more than a shooter. He wasn't even a shooter. He ran out the room. But because he made that song, because he was a kid with an undeveloped brain that's been trying to mask and deal with and process his childhood trauma. So he's dealing with PTSD just like a soldier, right? But he's a kid trying to process this. He was a kid, homie, and he fucked up. He fucked up. It cost somebody their life. But he don't deserve 55 years for what he got 55 years for the first charge. He wasn't the shooter. He didn't plan it. He was just there.
Tay-K's sister Kayla, who became his guardian after he was initially released from juvenile detention, has been one of his strongest supporters. She took him in when she was just 18, providing him a place to stay during his house arrest. Kayla has consistently maintained that her brother deserves another chance, pointing to his troubled upbringing and the systemic issues that pushed him toward crime. Tay-K's uncle expressed similar sentiments, suggesting that with proper guidance, Tay-K could have gone in a completely different direction.
I think he would have been a good soldier because he likes the contact, he likes the tactical stuff. He's very intelligent, he's very smart, he's very articulate. I don't know what people or what social media think of him, but he's a smart kid. If he was able to do that at 14, 15, imagine now. You know, imagine. So if you take that time capsule away and that never happened, how far would he be right now in the music industry? He came out with the Playboy Cardis, the XXXTentacion. He was the leader of that SoundCloud. So imagine now what he'll be probably, and I mean this, like I said, there's no hit to anybody else, but he'll probably be leading a young school like NBA Youngboy, probably way above that situation. Lil Durk, probably with young Lil Baby, all them, he'll be up there with them. You know what I'm saying? Because I saw his talent. I hear his music. I hear his unreleased. I talk to him. He reads. He's getting into a mode of more maturity. So it's like, I just, I pray for him every day, and I pray for his mentor, and I pray for my sister. So, one day they can reunite.
Fan reactions to Tay-K's legal troubles have been mixed. On one hand, many admire his musical talent, with some calling him a generational talent, who only released a handful of songs before his career was cut short. On the other hand, others acknowledge the severity of his crimes and believe he deserves punishment, even if they enjoy his music. A post on X from April 2025 captured this conflicted sentiment. The most unfortunate part about all of this is if you listen to that Santana world, Tay-K had immense rap talent and energy, but for some reason he felt he actually needed to hurt and murder people. A sad story. On Reddit, discussions about Tay-K often revolve around his wasted potential, with one user stating, "Obviously, yeah, he's a murderer, but we're just saying, if he wasn't a murderer, he'd be huge RN." Others are more critical, with one commenter calling him a demon and saying, "Let him rot behind bars." bars. With his second murder conviction and life sentence without parole, the debate about Tay-K's fate has taken on a new dimension. Many fans feel the additional trial was excessive and unfair, given that he was already serving a 55-year sentence. Some even see it as a deliberate attempt to make an example out of him. One Twitter user argued, "Yeah, I understand having to deal with the consequences of actions, but Tay-K already has been sentenced to over 25 years. So I think this is a bit excessive if they are just going to give him another life sentence." But for the families of his alleged victims, justice is not about Tay-K's potential or his difficult past. It's about accountability for the lives lost. After his first trial, Ethan Walker's father made a powerful statement about how the race felt like Tay-K was dancing on Ethan's grave. For them, no sentence could bring back their loved ones. The legacy and the lessons. By his own admission, when Tay-K went on the run and recorded the race, he saw it as a marketing opportunity. That decision to capitalize on his fugitive status, reading and maturing behind bars. In letters and social media posts from prison, Tay-K expressed a desire for a second chance, arguing that he was just...
I talked to him, he reads, he's getting into a mode of more maturity. So it's like, I just, I pray for him every day, and I pray for his mentor, and I pray for my sister. So, one day they can reunite.
When these crimes occurred, and that his brain wasn't fully developed. He's pointed to the racial disparities in his sentence, suggesting that the justice system treats black defendants more harshly than white ones. He's pointed to the racial disparities in his sentencing, suggesting that the justice system treats black defendants more harshly than white ones. These arguments touch on real issues in our criminal justice system. Studies consistently show that black defendants receive longer sentences than white defendants for similar crimes, and there's ongoing debate about whether juvenile offenders should be tried as adults given what we know about brain development. That said, we can't overlook the severity of the crimes Tay-K was convicted of. The families of Ethan Walker and Mark Saldivar have suffered immeasurable loss, and they deserve justice. The question is whether Tay-K's punishments, a 55-year sentence followed by life without parole, represent justice or excessive retribution. In one of his final court appearances before receiving his life sentence, Tay-K reportedly appeared resigned to his fate, a far cry from the defiant teenager who once taunted police on social media. The years behind bars had clearly taken their toll, and the once promising young artist now faced the reality that he would likely never experience freedom again. The reaction to Tay-K's life sentence has been mixed across social media. Some fans express sadness at the waste of potential, while others see it as the necessary consequence of his actions. The hip-hop community as a whole seems divided, with some artists showing support for Tay-K, while others use his story as a warning about the dangers of street life. What makes Tay-K's case particularly fascinating is how it highlights the intersection of art and reality in hip-hop. When rappers talk about crime in their lyrics, where's the line between artistic expression and glorification? And how should the legal system interpret lyrics that seem to confess to or celebrate illegal activities? The Tay-K saga also forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about responsibility. Is society partly to blame for failing? This young man, did the music industry exploit his criminal behavior for profit? Or is Tay-K solely responsible for the choices he made regardless of his circumstances? There are no easy answers here. On one hand, Tay-K grew up in an environment that stacked the odds against him. Parents in gangs, time in foster care, abuse at home. On the other hand, many young people face similar challenges without resorting to violence. The financial aspect of Tay-K's case adds another layer of complexity. After The Race went viral and his debut mixtape Santana World was released, Tay-K signed a deal reportedly worth $600,000 with 88 Classic, a label run by an RCA Records executive. This led to lawsuits from the victims' families, who argued that Tay-K shouldn't profit from crimes that caused their loved ones' deaths. These lawsuits raised ethical questions about the music industry's role in potentially incentivizing or capitalizing on criminal behavior. When record labels sign artists with pending murder charges, are they implicitly endorsing or exploiting violence for commercial gain? Throughout his time in prison, Tay-K has maintained an online presence, with his Twitter account occasionally sharing updates about his conditions and state of mind. In 2023, he compared his prison cell to a hamster cage, giving fans a glimpse into the harsh reality of his confinement. There have also been rumors and reports about Tay-K's behavior behind bars, including allegations that he attempted to start his own gang called the Rugrats in prison. This suggests that despite the severe consequences he's already faced, Tay-K has struggled to completely leave behind the criminal mindset that got him into trouble in the first place. Now, with a life sentence without the possibility of parole, Tay-K's story has reached its tragic conclusion. At just 24 years old, he faces the prospect of spending the rest of his days behind bars, a stark reminder of how quickly a promising life can be derailed by poor decisions and violent actions. Click this video on your screen to see more stories like this one.